This is what democracy looks like. And this is what Bob Marley was talking about when he said, get up, stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up for your rights. He also said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. And that is what the Occupy Boulder movement, the Occupy Denver and Occupy Wall Street movement is all about. It's about mental emancipation. It's about breaking the chains of capitalism and imperialism that has completely demolished and denigrated the country to such an extent that we now have 1%, not even 1%, 1/10 of 1% with the greatest concentration of wealth in history. There has been a massive transfer of money and riches from the bottom and the middle up to the top. It is unprecedented. And all of those Chicago school economists that have been worshipped, like Milton Friedman and his disciple Alan Greenspan, and the deplorable Ayn Rand and Friedrich Hayek, all of those economic theories have resulted in the greatest transfer of wealth. So yes, the system works for the elite, the ruling class. There is a ruling class in this country. We need to be talking about that and not pretending that it's just some obscure Marxist term. There are people that rule. We know who they are, and the banks finance them. It is an interlocking system of power and privilege, and they intend to maintain their power. Why would they give it up? The only thing that's going to force them to give up their power to the people is heat from the streets. The kind of vibration of people who believe in democracy, who believe in equality and economic justice, and not the kind of top-down, patriarchal, hierarchical system that we have now in the United States. Stephen Biko was murdered by the South African police in the late 1970s. He said the most potent weapon that the oppressors have is the mind of the oppressed. And again, to speak to that thing that I began with, about emancipating yourself from mental slavery. This starts with one at a time. It's about questioning the very structures of this system that we have. And what they'll do, and what they are doing right now, classic pattern, is focusing on rotten apples. So everyone feels very virtuous about denouncing Bernie Madoff and his Ponzi schemes, and Roger Ratnam and his insider trading. And there's a whole series of them. It goes back to Michael Milken and Ivan Boesky and the Keating Five and on and on. And they'll have you believe that if we could just tinker with the system a little bit, just have some cosmetic reform, that everything is hunky-dory. No one is looking at the barrel that produces this kind of dysfunction. That barrel has a name. That economic system has a name, and it's not to be euphemistically called the free market or the market. It is capitalism that is at the heart of the issue. Sunshine, hopefully enjoying my words and having a moment of reflection and perhaps even some poetry, while people in Pakistan are being bombed, while people in Afghanistan are being killed, while people in Yemen and Somalia and now Uganda. Do you know that the United States troops have now entered Uganda?
Well, that's Syria.
All over the world, there's string of bases, the global empire that attempts to impose its democracy. What do they mean in Washington? We're not talking here about Democrats or Republicans. We're talking about the system. The system is imposing its will on other countries, and they're calling it democracy. But what they really mean is capitalism. It is accepting economic penetration from the same Wall Street banks that have desolated and decimated this country. Americans are angry, we are told, when we read the New York Times and the Daily Camera and other august journals.
Yeah, that's right we are.
I wonder why Americans are angry. You know, 50 million people have no health care. Tens of millions have lost their homes. 25 to 30 million are either out of work, have given up, or are stuck in dead-end part-time jobs. Why would Americans be angry when they see the greatest transfer of wealth from the bottom to the top? There is good reason to be angry, but the anger must be focused with action. It must be focused with pressure. And imperialism, the change you can believe in, the change you can believe in president. Yes, you can, which has to be the most vacuous slogan ever invented. The Yes, you can president has promised the American people what? He has promised, now make no mistake, the nation will maintain our military dominance. We will have the strongest armed forces in the history of the world. That's change you can believe in. That's a Pentagon that is choking this country, that's draining every last cent that should be going to teacher salaries, that should be going to remedial programs. Education. We should have the best arts programs in the world, the best educational system. All of those things are crumbling while the imperial machine goes on its merry way, all in the name of democracy. And make no mistake, to echo Obama, he is an imperial president, just like all the others. Just because he can speak English in complete sentences and knows what a verb is, does not fundamentally change him from the previous presidents.
That's right!
This putrid and defeated war machine has got to be stopped in its tracks. We need to be talking about imperialism, which goes hand in hand with capitalism in terms of expanding markets. That's why they're interested in Libya. You think if Libya had cauliflower or broccoli, the United States would be bombing Libya and now, carving up its resources. It's all about oil in the Middle East.
They are all the same.
It's not about democracy. We see what's happened. It's classic. We're seeing, it's interesting. There is a Greek drama going on. The Greeks invented drama. The epicenter of the global economic crisis now is in the very cradle of so-called democracy in Greece. And a Greek philosopher and historian, Thucydides, said, when you have empire abroad, you will have tyranny at home. And he witnessed and he wrote about the destruction of Athenian democracy as Athens imposed its violence and its rules on other peoples. It turned inward and then imposed it here on citizens in Athens itself. That very process is happening in the United States today, where we have an erosion of basic rights, an abrogation of free speech, of the right of assembly on public property. American citizens are told they cannot assemble. The right of assembly is absolutely critical, as is to the functioning of democracy. The right of association, the right of free association, which has been so undermined in such states as Wisconsin and in Ohio, where collective bargaining has been eliminated, is absolutely essential to the workings of a vibrant democracy. One of capitalism's projects ever since the 20s and 30s has been to destroy the American labor movement. Organized unions has always been a threat you to believe, well, you're better off, negotiating with your corporate boss on a one-on-one basis, eye to eye, mano a mano kind of thing. Well, that's completely false. There is power in the union. There is power in collective bargaining. But the capitalists don't want that. They want to control everything. In fact, capitalists have always wanted one thing in all of its, well over hundreds of years of history. They've always wanted one thing. And what is that one thing? Everything. They prioritize profits over people. You are not people to them. You are consumers. You are commodities. You don't have a life. You are to be surveyed and polled and categorized and put in and segmented into different groups. Humanity is being undermined by this system. We need to have a more democratic system and a system that is responsive to the needs of Main Street, not of Wall Street. And one of the methods of control, in addition to eroding and diminishing our freedoms here at home, the right of free speech, now we have warrantless wiretapping, emails are read, people are being surveilled. You don't have to go far. Just go to DIA if you want to see the essence of that system in operation right now. And so we need to, you talk about defending democracy here at home. We shouldn't be spending so much time and money trying to export it overseas and impose it on people that are not, are not that interested in our way of life. Of control is fear. We live in the United States of fear, the United States of amnesia, the United States of surveillance. By keeping people always on their, on pins and needles, up against the ropes, we are threatened. First we're threatened by, well, who? Noriega. You picked them. You picked the tyrant, Saddam Hussein. Now it's the Taliban. They keep coming up with new fears in order to manipulate us here at home and to force through a Pentagon budget that is way beyond the military defense needs of the United States of America. So let's have a conversation about capitalism. And let's not cloak it in opaque language about the free market and, creative entrepreneurs who just want to have their energies unleashed in order to create jobs. There has been a huge drain of manufacturing jobs by those very same capitalists, who always wave the flag, who haven't been, at all hesitant to offshore work that was once located here in the United States to other countries around the world. Now, why would they do that? Because they love Bangladeshis? Because they love Pakistanis? No! It's all about profits. It's all about making money. That's what they're about. That's what the system is about. When I was in the Bay Area in 1963-64, there was the free speech movement was going on there, and I was lucky enough to be a part of that. And one of its, I would say, dynamic and very charismatic speakers was Mario Savio. I'm going to read what he said in 1964. There is a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart, that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels and upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. You've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.